Sikoa confronts Wyatt Sicks after WWE Tag Title match on SmackDown. This is absolutely terrifying, and if you're not shook to your core right now, then you clearly missed the most ominous and most unsettling confrontation in WWE history. Sikoa just came face to face with the Wyatt Sicks after their tag title match on SmackDown, and what transpired wasn't just a normal backstage segment, it was a horror movie come to life that has everyone questioning whether the Bloodline's enforcer just made a fatal mistake by stepping into the realm of darkness. If you think this was just typical wrestling confrontation, you're completely missing the psychological warfare and the sinister implications of what happens when the Bloodline's most vicious weapon meets WWE's most disturbing faction. Comment right now if you think Sikoa is walking into something he can't fight his way out of, because the Wyatt Sicks don't operate by normal wrestling rules, and what I'm about to expose proves that this confrontation is the beginning of something darker and more twisted than anything WWE has done in years. This isn't about championships or respect, this is about Sikoa potentially losing his soul to forces he doesn't understand and can't physically intimidate. The street champion just entered a psychological nightmare. Let me paint the full picture, because every single detail of this confrontation matters when you're dealing with a faction as cryptic and as dangerous as the Wyatt Sicks. SmackDown featured a Tag Team Championship match involving members of the Wyatt Sicks. The details of the match itself almost don't matter, because what came after is what's dominating every conversation in the wrestling world right now. The Wyatt Sicks, this disturbing collective that channels the spirit and legacy of Bray Wyatt through their twisted personas and unsettling presence, had just finished their match. Win or lose, they were standing in that ring, the lights flickering in that signature way that makes your skin crawl, when suddenly their attention shifted. All of them, simultaneously, turned to look at the entrance ramp like they sensed something coming, and then Sikoa's music hit. The Bloodline's enforcer, the self-proclaimed tribal chief in his own right, the man who fears nothing and nobody, walked out onto that stage. But something was different. Sikoa wasn't his usual confident, aggressive self. There was something in his body language, a hesitation, a wariness, that we've never seen from Sikoa before. Here's a trivia question for the real fans: what is Sikoa's finishing move called? Drop your answer in the comments. Sikoa walked slowly to the ring, his eyes locked on the Wyatt Sicks members who were watching him with that unnerving stillness that makes them so creepy. When Sikoa finally reached the ring and climbed in, the atmosphere became suffocating. The crowd was silent, not the excited silence before something explosive, but the uncomfortable silence when you know you're watching something deeply wrong. Uncle Howdy, the leader of the Wyatt Sicks and the most direct connection to Bray Wyatt's legacy, stepped forward. His mask, that horrifying visage that looks like it came from your worst nightmare, tilted slightly as he studied Sikoa. The two men stood maybe 3 feet apart, and the tension was unbearable to watch. Sikoa spoke first, his voice carrying that usual aggression but with an edge of something else, maybe caution, maybe uncertainty. I don't know what you freaks are supposed to be. I don't care about your masks or your mind games or your weird cult stuff, but you're on my show. SmackDown is Bloodline territory, and you need to acknowledge that or get the hell out. The response from the Wyatt Sicks was chilling. Uncle Howdy didn't speak, he just laughed. Not a normal laugh, but that distorted, echoing laugh that sounds like it's coming from multiple voices at once. The other members of the Wyatt Sicks started swaying, moving in that synchronized but unsettling way that makes them look possessed. Then Uncle Howdy finally spoke, his voice distorted through the mask. Bloodline? Family? Legacy? These are just words, Sikoa. Chains you've wrapped around yourself. But we are free. Free from family obligations. Free from territorial disputes. Free from the illusion of control that you cling to, and soon, you'll be free too. Drop a comment: do you think the Wyatt Sicks are going to corrupt Sikoa, or will Sikoa bring the pain to this disturbing faction? Let me know your prediction. The implications of those words are staggering. Uncle Howdy wasn't threatening Sikoa with a beating or a match, he was threatening to change Sikoa, to break him psychologically, to free him from the Bloodline's influence. This isn't a physical threat, it's an existential threat. The Wyatt Sicks don't just want to beat Sikoa, they want to convert him or destroy who he is fundamentally. Sikoa's response was pure violence. He lunged at Uncle Howdy, throwing a punch that should have connected, but Uncle Howdy moved with unnatural speed, dodging the strike. The other Wyatt Sicks members closed in, and what happened next was chaos. Sikoa was fighting, throwing strikes, trying to use his power and aggression, but the Wyatt Sicks moved like they were connected by invisible strings, coordinating perfectly, attacking from angles Sikoa couldn't defend. But here's what was truly disturbing: they weren't trying to hurt Sikoa. They were toying with him. Every time Sikoa swung, they dodged. Every time he tried to grab one of them, they slipped away. They were showing Sikoa that his physical dominance, his street fighter mentality, his enforcer role in the Bloodline, none of it mattered against opponents who operated on a different plane of existence. The lights went out again. When they came back on, the Wyatt Sicks were gone. Vanished. Sikoa was alone in the ring, breathing hard, looking around frantically. And then he heard it: whispers. Coming from everywhere and nowhere. Voices saying things that the microphones couldn't quite pick up but that made Solo's expression change from anger to something that looked almost like fear. Solo quickly left the ring and stormed backstage, but the cameras followed him. What we saw next is what's got everyone freaked out. As Solo walked through the backstage area, things started happening. Lights flickered. Doors slammed shut by themselves. Every monitor Solo passed showed static interrupted by brief flashes of disturbing images, masks, symbols, what looked like footage of Solo himself but distorted and wrong. Quick question: who is the leader of the Wyatt Sicks faction? Real fans will know. Solo reached his locker room and slammed the door shut, but even that didn't provide safety. The cameras couldn't go inside, but we could hear things. Solo yelling, objects being thrown, and underneath it all, that same distorted laughter echoing through the walls. Whatever the Wyatt Sicks did, it followed Solo into his supposed sanctuary. The implications for Solo Sikoa are profound and terrifying. Solo has built his entire identity on being the Bloodline's enforcer, on being the guy who handles problems through violence and intimidation. But what happens when you face opponents who can't be intimidated? What happens when your greatest strengths become irrelevant? What happens when the monsters you're fighting aren't afraid of pain because they embrace darkness? The Wyatt Sicks represent something Solo has never faced before: psychological warfare on a supernatural level. They don't care about the Bloodline's legacy. They don't fear Roman Reigns. They don't respect Solo's street credibility. They exist in a space where traditional wrestling rules and traditional power structures mean nothing, and that makes them the most dangerous opponents Solo could possibly face. The Bloodline's reaction to this situation is crucial to watch. Roman Reigns has always controlled everything with an iron fist, but how do you control a situation involving forces that seem supernatural? How does the tribal chief respond when his enforcer is being psychologically tormented by a faction that can apparently appear and disappear at will? This challenges the Bloodline's entire power structure. Paul Heyman would traditionally be the voice of reason and strategy, but even Paul seems unnerved by the Wyatt Sicks. Reports from backstage suggest that Paul was watching this confrontation on monitors and looked genuinely disturbed by what he was seeing. If Paul Heyman, the wise man who's seen everything in wrestling, is concerned, then Solo should be terrified. Tell me in the comments, should the Bloodline help Solo deal with the Wyatt Sicks, or is this something Solo needs to face alone? What's your take? The match possibilities coming from this confrontation are fascinating but also unpredictable because the Wyatt Sicks don't do traditional matches. They do experiences. They do horror. If Solo and the Wyatt Sicks face off in a sanctioned environment, it won't be a normal wrestling match, it'll be something cinematic, something disturbing, something that pushes the boundaries of what WWE can show on television. Imagine a Firefly Funhouse-style match but with Solo Sikoa being forced to confront his own demons, his own place in the Bloodline, his own identity separate from being an enforcer. Imagine the Wyatt Sicks forcing Solo through psychological gauntlets designed to break him. That's the kind of storytelling this confrontation could lead to, and it's terrifying to contemplate. The fan reaction has been divided in fascinating ways. Some fans are thrilled to see the Wyatt Sicks being presented as genuinely threatening and supernatural rather than just weird guys in masks. They want to see Solo pushed to his psychological limits. They want WWE to commit fully to the horror aspects of this storyline and make it genuinely uncomfortable to watch. Other fans are concerned that making the Wyatt Sicks too supernatural undermines the sports-based presentation of wrestling. They worry that if the Wyatt Sicks can teleport and manipulate reality, how do you ever beat them? How do you maintain any sense of competitive balance? These are legitimate creative concerns that WWE needs to address. The comparison to Bray Wyatt's previous work is inevitable and brings both opportunity and pressure. Bray Wyatt was a master of psychological horror storytelling in wrestling. The Wyatt Sicks are meant to honor his legacy while creating their own identity. This confrontation with Solo is their chance to prove they can deliver that same level of compelling, unsettling content that made Bray legendary. What's your honest opinion? Are the Wyatt Sicks successfully honoring Bray Wyatt's legacy, or are they falling short? Be real with me in the comments. The character development opportunities for Solo are massive. Up until now, Solo has been fairly one-dimensional. He's the strong, silent enforcer who solves problems with violence. But being psychologically challenged by the Wyatt Sicks could force Solo to show different facets of his personality. Can he show vulnerability? Can he show fear? Can he show intelligence in combating mental warfare? This could make Solo a much more complex and interesting character. The broader implications for SmackDown's landscape are significant. If the Wyatt Sicks can successfully challenge the Bloodline's enforcer, it establishes them as a top-tier threat. Other wrestlers will have to take them seriously. Other factions will have to consider them in their strategic planning. The entire power structure of SmackDown could shift based on how this confrontation plays out. The Wyatt Sicks' motivations are still mysterious, which adds to their effectiveness as antagonists. Why did they target Solo specifically? Is it because he's the Bloodline's enforcer? Is it because they see something in Solo that they want to corrupt or free? Is this part of a larger plan to dismantle the bloodline piece by piece? The ambiguity makes them more threatening because you can't predict their next move. The production value of this confrontation was top tier. The lighting, the sound design, the camera work, everything contributed to creating an atmosphere of genuine dread. WWE's production team deserves credit for making the Wyatt Sicks feel like they exist in a different reality than normal wrestlers. The flickering lights, the distorted audio, the way cameras would lose focus around the Wyatt Sicks, all of it added to the horror. The social media reaction has been explosive with mixed reviews. Horror fans are praising WWE for committing to genuinely scary storytelling. Traditional wrestling fans are skeptical about whether this supernatural stuff belongs in WWE. Casual viewers are confused but intrigued. The diversity of reactions proves that this storyline is making people feel something, which is always the goal. Here's a spicy question: should WWE do more supernatural/horror storylines like this, or should they stick to more traditional wrestling stories? Give me your take. The potential for this to connect to larger bloodline storylines is intriguing. Is this the Wyatt Sicks way of inserting themselves into the ongoing bloodline civil war? Could they be the wild card factor that tips the balance of power? Could they be the force that finally destroys the bloodline from within by breaking Solo psychologically? The crossover potential is massive. The merchandise opportunities are interesting but challenging. The Wyatt Sicks aesthetic is creepy and unsettling, which makes for compelling television but might be harder to sell as merchandise. How do you market masks and symbols that are designed to make people uncomfortable? WWE's marketing department has their work cut out for them. The historical context of wrestling horror is rich. From The Undertaker to Kane to Bray Wyatt himself, WWE has a long tradition of supernatural characters. The Wyatt Sicks are the latest evolution of that tradition, and they're bringing a more psychological horror approach compared to the more physical supernatural powers of previous characters. It's an interesting evolution of the genre within wrestling. The challenge for WWE creative is maintaining this momentum. Horror storylines can be incredibly effective in short bursts, but sustaining them over months without becoming repetitive or ridiculous is difficult. WWE needs to have a clear plan for where this goes, how it escalates, and how it ultimately resolves. Half measures will kill this storyline's effectiveness. One final question before we wrap: if you could book the ultimate confrontation between Solo Sikoa and the Wyatt Sicks, what type of match would it be? Regular match? Cinematic experience? Something else? The legacy implications are significant for everyone involved. For Solo, this could be the feud that establishes him as more than just the bloodline's muscle. It could show his depth and versatility as a performer. For the Wyatt Sicks, successfully feuding with a bloodline member could legitimize them as main event level threats. The stakes are high for everyone. Now I want to hear from you, the Wrestling Newsletter family. Tell me in the comments. Are you scared for Solo Sikoa after this confrontation? Do you think the Wyatt Sicks are too supernatural or just right? Should the bloodline get involved or leave Solo to handle this? What's the creepiest thing the Wyatt Sicks could do next? Do you want to see a match between them or more psychological warfare? How does this storyline rank compared to past WWE horror angles? Smash that like button if the Wyatt Sicks terrified you with this confrontation. Destroy that like button if you want to see more horror in WWE. We need maximum engagement on this disturbing storyline. Subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter because we're covering every twisted development in this Solo Sikoa vs Wyatt Sicks saga. This is going to get darker before it gets better. Share this video with every wrestling and horror fan because Solo Sikoa confronting the Wyatt Sicks after that tag title match is the beginning of something sinister and unforgettable. Solo Sikoa just entered the realm of darkness. The Wyatt Sicks have marked him. The psychological warfare has begun, and nobody knows if the bloodline's enforcer can survive with his sanity intact. This isn't just wrestling anymore, this is horror. And we're all about to witness how far WWE is willing to push the boundaries of fear and psychological torment. The nightmare has only just started.